Please take your seat. All delegations are kindly requested to take their seats, please.
Distinguished ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare open the 46th session of the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. I would like to begin with the agenda item 1, which is adoption of the agenda. You have before you the draft agenda and draft annotated agenda for this session, contained in documents CTBT/PC 46/inf1 and CTBT/PC 46/inf2. Are there any comments on the draft agenda? I see none. May I take it that the draft agenda is acceptable and can be adopted? It is so decided. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there are many ministers and other high-ranking officials from state signatories attending this session of the Commission to mark the 20th anniversary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. I therefore suggest to take up agenda item 7, 20th anniversary of the treaty and the Commission. After conclusion of consideration of this agenda item, we will proceed with the rest of items on our agenda. Are there any comments on my proposal? I see no objection. It is so decided. I now have the honor to hand over the chairpersonship of this ministerial meeting to His Excellency Mr. Lazar Comănescu, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania. You have the floor, Minister.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary Dr. Zerbo, distinguished colleagues, honorable guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Before proceeding further with our works, let me let you know how deeply saddened I am by the tragedy that took place yesterday in Orlando, United States of America. Our thoughts and prayers go to the families and friends of the victims of this barbaric act, for which, like in the case of other similar criminal acts, there can be no excuse. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to thank all the ministers and high officials who have responded positively to the invitation that I sent in March, together with my colleagues from Japan and Kazakhstan, Minister Kishida and Minister Idrisov, and the Executive Secretary of the CTBTO, Dr. Lasina Zerbo. Our presence here today to mark the 20th anniversary of the opening for signature of the CTBT and the establishment of the Preparatory Commission is a telling evidence of the broad political support for and commitment to the treaty and its goal, which is, as stipulated in the preamble, and I'm quoting, to contribute effectively to the prevention of the proliferation of nuclear weapons in all its aspects, to the process of nuclear disarmament, and therefore to the enhancement of international peace and security, unquote. We have before us today a program of events that will allow the high officials of the signatory states not only to restate their strong pledge in favor of the treaty, but also to generate a renewed political momentum for the urgency of its entry into force and its universalization by identifying creative ideas that will re-energize the path towards ratification in the remaining Annex II states. Besides the official part of the program that will take place in this room, ministers will have the opportunity to interact and exchange ideas in a more informal way during the roundtable discussions which will take place, which will tackle the topics of how to overcome the challenges in obtaining the signature or ratification still needed for the treaty's entry into force, and to review the security and civilian benefits of the verification regime of the treaty. We will all have the chance to see, in practice, how the verification regime performs, not only at the exhibition in the Rotunda, but also during the tour of the International Data Center for those of you who are interested. Romania is among the countries that signed the treaty on the first day of its opening for signature and ratified it early. We are a constant and active promoter of the treaty's entry into force and universalization, having twice assumed the responsibility of chairing the Preparatory Commission, first in 2001 and this year. And we are also represented within the group of eminent persons. It is with great honor and a deep sense of responsibility that we coordinated the preparation of the 20th anniversary, and I want to thank you all, signatory states, the Executive Secretary, and the Provisional Technical Secretariat, for the constant support and valuable proposals that made this event possible. Since the second half of last year, my country has had the honor to work together with all of you through an open, transparent, and inclusive process to prepare this series of anniversary events intended to acknowledge the treaty's merits, as well as to promote its entry into force and universalization. The anniversary is an occasion of thorough reflection of the achievements so far of the CTBT. One can proudly note that the treaty has become a most efficient deterrent. Nuclear explosive tests are now an anomaly, carried out against an established international standard. Only one country is still testing in the 21st century, and its behavior is unacceptable for the international community that stands firm and united against any such breach. This is much to the credit of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which encapsulates the combined international effort and political will to put an end to what was previously a widespread practice. Although still provisional, the CTBTO has a truly global monitoring presence that is able to do something that no single country could achieve: collecting and analyzing data sent from 282 certified stations all around the world and making clandestine nuclear explosive tests impossible. The data collected by the International Monitoring System and sent to the International Data Center are available in a uniquely, completely democratic manner to all signatory states. Besides its security merits, it has numerous scientific and civilian applications that we all benefit from, such as early warning for tsunamis and earthquakes and climate change mitigation. These achievements are fully in line with the Sustainable Development Goals as stated in the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Bearing in mind all these achievements, I would like to convey my warm appreciation to all executive secretaries, past and present, and to the PTS for their highly professional work in building an efficient and reliable verification regime and making all the data available to the state's signatories, thus preparing the organization to be fully effective and operational on the day the treaty will enter into force. I would also like to express special thanks to the current Executive Secretary, Dr. Lassina Zerbo, for his tireless efforts in the service of the promotion of the treaty's entry into force and its universalization, including through the group of eminent persons. Ministers, distinguished delegates, alongside these commendable achievements, today all of us are aware of the fact that we are facing unfinished business. The CTBT is still not in force, 20 years after its opening for signature. This is a rather unique and regrettable situation against the backdrop of a challenging international security context. The treaty cannot be of full utility to the international community because the third pillar of the verification regime, one-state inspection, the only instrument that can fully verify whether a nuclear explosive test has taken place, cannot be used. The deadlock we are in is fraught with considerable risks, which we must work together to avert. Nobody in this room, at least, would like to see the diminution of the existing nearly universal political support for the goal of the treaty, namely a permanent end to nuclear explosive tests. Lack of forward progress could lead to a possible loss of interest in further financing and completing the verification regime. Likewise, if the present stalemate were to continue, it could affect the stability and professionalism of the PTS experts. An even greater danger is using the lack of prospects for entry into force as an excuse for a state's abrogation of its ratification or resuming testing altogether. We must all be wary of the temptation to search for alternative paths to the treaty's entry into force, which may grow out of frustration. The future remains uncertain except, perhaps, for one thing, which is that of entry into force of the CTBT cannot be addressed in a vacuum, but as a part of the international and regional security contexts. It is our duty and responsibility as well to work together to prevent any return to the situation as it was before the adoption of the CTBT. In conclusion, let us focus our attention and creativity today with a sense of urgency on how to advance the treaty's entry into force in the current challenging environment and how to maintain this issue high on the international political agenda, in parallel with raising the awareness of our publics to the unquestionable benefits of the treaty and its verification regime for international peace and security. I now wish to invite the Secretary of the CTBTO to address the meeting. Dear Mr. Zerbo, you have the floor.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Minister Comanescu, honorable ministers, excellencies, distinguished delegates, participants, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to join the Foreign Minister of Romania in our thought and prayer for the victim of the last terrorist attack in the United States, in Kazakhstan, and in Turkey. Let me also especially welcome Ms. Mogherini, the High Representative of the European Union, who is a member of the group of eminent persons, and the first to have joined us in this endeavor to organize this ministerial meeting. Ms. Mogherini, dear friend, welcome and thank you for joining us. Let me now say that it's a pleasure to welcome you at this ministerial meeting, a ministerial meeting that is also hosted by Foreign Minister Kurz as the host country and Federal Foreign Minister of Australia. Foreign Minister Kurz, welcome. Your presence here is a resounding endorsement of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty as we approach the 20th anniversary of its opening for signature. Through discussion in the plenary session, the Ministerial Roundtable, and side event today and tomorrow, I hope we can bring into focus what a monumental accomplishment the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty is. The treaty, with its verification regime, is one of the greatest examples of how people and nations came together to put an end to one of the most destructive legacies of the Cold War. As I said before, we cannot really approach this anniversary as a cause for celebration. Until it enters into force, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty is an unfinished business. Until we finish what we started, there is a risk that the world will backslide into nuclear testing. Last year, as I looked ahead to 2016, I became convinced, together with my staff, that the most appropriate way to mark the anniversary was to seek opportunities to reflect upon the treaty, on the real achievement made and the challenges that have persisted over time. We must understand the past if we are to find a way to secure the treaty's future. And this is why my predecessors, both Ambassador Todt and Ambassador Hoffman, are here with us as part of this 20 years achievement. So far, this year we have held some major events as part of that reflection process, including a 2-week symposium in January and a public discussion with the United Nations Secretary General in April. The ministerial meeting takes the process further. In addition to a large number of serving government ministers and other senior officials, we are delighted to welcome members of the group of eminent persons. We also have a very healthy participation from the civil society, academia, and media. And we continue our focus on the next generation, with contribution by members of the CTBT youth group and other young persons. My hope is that all these participants will help bring us from a place of reflection to a place of action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, nuclear tests not only poison the environment, they also poison the political climate. They breed mistrust, isolation, and fear. Since I began my term as Executive Secretary 3 years ago, and even before as Director of the International Data Center, I have visited nuclear test sites such as those in Nevada and Semipalatinsk. I have also been to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Nobody can set foot in such places and remain unaffected by what they see and what they learn. That is the value of bearing witness, and it is the value of advocacy. So today, I ask all of you in a position of leadership and responsibility to do what you can to bring this treaty into force. We have much to be proud of in the last 20 years, but we have not yet reached our final destination. Above all, we need to transmit the story of nuclear testing to the next generation. Leadership is also about mentorship. I very much hope that determine and focus youth engagement on the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty issues will be one of the strongest outcomes of the 20th anniversary. So, thank you, Minister Comanescu, for the hard work you, Ambassador Estrade, and the government of Romania have put into preparing this ministerial meeting. And thank you once again to all participants for their active engagement in support of the nuclear test ban. I wanted to also thank my colleague, the Director General of IEA, the Director General of UNIDO, the Undersecretary General for Disarmament, and all the members of the GEM, and my directors as well, and the staff of the CTBT to have joined us in this special event. Let's meet again sometime. The not too distant future, to finally celebrate the first of many happy anniversary of a CTBT into force. I thank you.
I'd like to thank the Executive Secretary for his statement. As you may know, the Secretary General of the United Nations, as the depository of the treaty, has sent his greetings and a message to the ministerial meeting. A video greeting is shown, and his message is delivered by Mr. Ban Ki-moon, by Mr. Kim, UN High Representative for Disarmament Affairs.
I am pleased to greet everyone at this important gathering on the critical Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. When I attended the treaty's 20th anniversary commemoration in Vienna, I said this milestone is a sober reminder that we must bring the treaty into force. We have to end the toxic legacy of nuclear testing. We have to free future generations from the shadow of weapons that can destroy all life. As foreign ministers and senior officials, you must generate the political momentum needed to make the CTBT a legally binding reality. I also appeal to the world's youth to raise their voices and demand action. States that have yet to ratify should be leaders, not followers, especially states whose ratification is needed for entry into force. They must act now. 20 years is too long. The United Nations will keep pressing to end nuclear tests and help fulfill the promise of a nuclear weapon-free future. Thank you.
Minister Comanescu of Romania, Mr. Lassina Gerobo, Executive Secretary of the Preparatory Commission. Before I read the Secretary General's message, I'd like to convey, first of all, his personal regrets for not being able to be present today. I know many of you must be disappointed not to see the Secretary General in person, but to see me in his place. But I can tell you that disappointment is mutual, because Secretary General wanted so much to join you today, but he deeply regrets the circumstances which forced him not to do so. I now have the privilege to deliver a message on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations, in addition to his video greeting which was just shown. Quote, "The CTBT must be brought into force without delay. This event must be a call to action. The 8 Annex II states must not wait for others to act. Any one of the 8 can end should break ranks first. The ratification and signing by any one of these states will encourage others to follow suit and have other benefits for the broader disarmament and non-proliferation agenda. More than 20 non-Annex II states have yet to sign or ratify the treaty. For many of these states, this is not because they are not willing, but mostly because they are not able. That's the reason why the United Nations stands ready to help. In partnership with the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, we are scaling up our efforts to assist the states, refining our methods, and taking a more targeted approach, including at a regional and sub-regional level. These states, too, must not wait for others to act. I urge them to take every step they can to join the treaty. I want to applaud the exceptional work of the CTBTO. It is effectively working as a functioning institution despite the treaty's non-entry into force. I'm encouraged that while 164 states have signed and ratified the CTBT, 183 signatory states have taken on the responsibilities of membership of the CTBTO. The robust and tested verification mechanism is ably supported by the 183 states and by those states that have not even signed the treaty. The nuclear taboo has been broken only by one state this century. Even one is too many. The CTBTO's role in detecting and verifying this breach was very useful. It further demonstrated its value to the essential work of maintaining global security. The United Nations will continue to be a full partner with the CTBTO. I take this opportunity to reiterate my personal commitment to the universalization and full implementation of the CTBTO. Thank you." Unquote. This concludes the message of the Secretary General. Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I want to extend my warm wishes to all CTBTO member states for success in your deliberations today. With a combined will in this room, I hope we can devise a path ahead for our shared cause. We count on you all and look forward to making this journey together. I thank you.
Well, I thank the Secretary General for his message and Mr. Kim for delivering it. And ladies and gentlemen, since today is the very day of the anniversary of the birthday of the Secretary General of the United Nations, please allow me to use this opportunity to convey to him our warmest wishes of health and full success in the future as well. Now, before opening the floor for statements, I'd like to remind you that a ministerial roundtable is scheduled for 11:30 to 12:30. However, this plenary meeting will continue its work. And now the floor is open for statements by ministers and other senior officials. If I well understood, the first speaker on my list is the High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and Vice President of the European Commission, Mrs. Federica Mogherini. Federica, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me join you and our friends and colleagues in expressing our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the victims of yesterday's attack in Orlando and all our American friends. The European Union is at their side We share the same values, and we will continue to do all we can to protect and promote them. Let me also say how relevant it is for me personally to be here in this building. It's the first time I come back after the implementation day of the Iranian deal on the 16th of January, where we were together with Director General Amano. And also for me personally, as Dr. Zerbo, my friend Lassina, was mentioning, having been in the group of eminent persons from the very beginning, being for sure the less eminent one. I would like to thank them all and the friends that are in the room today for having accompanied me, having taught me a lot, and for the energy and dedication they all put in this work, and you, Lassina, personally. Thank you very much. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union, and the following countries align themselves with this statement: Turkey, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Montenegro, Iceland, Serbia, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Liechtenstein, Norway, Ukraine, Republic of Moldova, Georgia, Andorra, and San Marino. Let me thank you, Mr. Chairman, the Executive Secretary of the CTBTO, and all organizers for this meeting in the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the opening up for signature of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. It is a great opportunity to assess the achievements of the last 20 years, but also to remind us that the treaty is not in force yet. And we have not given up our goal. But to achieve it, we need a stronger push and more unity from all of us. The European Union has supported the CTBT and its organization with force and conviction from the very beginning. We want the treaty to enter into force and to be universalized. All EU member states have ratified it, and we are strongly committed, both politically and financially, to pursuing all the objectives of the treaty. The many crises we are dealing with cannot distract our attention from this aim. On the contrary, they make it even more urgent. When the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was opened for signature at UN headquarters in New York 20 years ago, the world had gone through decades of nuclear testing and then years of negotiations. After the tense decades of the Cold War, the treaty gave us hope that a more peaceful and cooperative world was indeed possible. And a lot has been achieved since that September 1996. 183 states have signed, and 164 of them have ratified the CTBT. This only confirms the strong international support for this treaty and its goals. Second, all nuclear weapon states have either signed and ratified the treaty or abide by a moratorium on nuclear test explosions. 3. An unprecedented nuclear verification regime of global reach has been created and is working effectively, even if still on provisional basis, pending the entry into force of the treaty. 4th, substantial technical and human capacities have been built up to help the full implementation of the provisions of the treaty. 5th, significant civilian applications and capacities, such as to support tsunami warnings or to monitor emissions from radiological accidents, have also been built up. They all complement the primary objective of the verification regime. Even with this provisional application, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty has already strengthened the international non-proliferation regime and our efforts towards global nuclear disarmament. The cessation of all nuclear weapon test explosions and all other nuclear explosions constrains the development and qualitative improvement of nuclear weapons and ends the development of advanced new types of nuclear weapons. Therefore, it constitutes an effective measure of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation in all its aspects. At the same time, we still need to deal with major challenges. First, the complete elimination of nuclear weapon test explosions and nuclear explosions has not yet been achieved. The danger of such explosions still exists, and one reminder of this was the latest nuclear test by DPRK in January this year, and also by other nuclear tests in 2006, 2009, 2013. All these tests were strongly condemned by our European Union and the international community. The second challenge we have to face, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, remains the cornerstone of the global nuclear non-proliferation regime, and yet, last year, its review conference failed to reach a consensus on the final document. Third, even after 20 years, the treaty has not yet entered into force, and Lessina was mentioning this quite powerfully. Important states playing a key role in the international relations have still not signed nor ratified it, and in particular, the 8 remaining Annex II states have not moved closer to signature and ratification. And we all bear a responsibility to facilitate the signature and ratification by the remaining Annex II states. For this, we must work with governments and state institutions. Signing and ratifying the CTBT can be an important step for states who want to deepen their integration into the international community. We should use all opportunities to make this clear and to enhance international cooperation for the promotion of this treaty. But we also must search for allies in all societies worldwide. We have a duty to explain the treaty and its relevance to all citizens of the world. And let me welcome here the focus on the youth. I think next generation is going to be crucial, also because it's not only the next generation, it's also the present of our world. Ultimately, ordinary citizens can be the most powerful sponsors of the treaty, with the decision makers who have the authority to promote its entry into force and universalization. An effective, verifiable and reliable treaty has great potentials to strengthen confidence inside the international community. Such confidence can positively influence other fields of nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament. And this is particularly true in tense and fragile regions such as the Middle East. The European Union supports the objective of creating in the Middle East a zone free of nuclear weapons, all other weapons of mass destruction, and their means of delivery. As a stepping stone towards this long-term objective, a nuclear test-free zone could be created in the Middle East by way of CTBT ratifications by the remaining states of the region. Besides nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, the highly technical nature of the verification system and the use of high-end technologies are also bringing additional benefits in the field of the civilian applications. Mr. Chairman, the European Union has continuously supported the build-up of the verification regime of CTBTO for more than 10 years through voluntary contributions. Last October, the European Union adopted its latest Council decision allocating an additional €3 million. And these funds have already started to finance some critical projects which contribute to enhancing the capabilities of the organization, in particular through capacity building. 20 years into the CTBT era, our European Union support is strong and continues to grow. Our daily work aims at bringing the CTBTO's operative readiness to a higher level. Together, we can pave the way for entry into force of the treaty at the earliest possible date. This is actually going to be discussed in the Foreign Affairs Committee of the European Parliament on the 7th of July this year, in which I am planning to participate myself. Threats to global peace are multiplying, including in our Union's very region. It is time to redouble our efforts to never again see the dark cloud of a nuclear explosion. In the historic G7 ministerial meeting in Hiroshima, together with my colleagues, we have committed to the goal of a world without nuclear weapons. And for me personally, it was an important moment, not only a symbolic step, a very powerful one for sure, but a political one. And such a dream must translate into concrete action and policies. And you can count on our European Union to work constantly and at your side for a more peaceful and secure global order. I thank you very much, and I wish you all very fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, High Representative dear Federica. The next speaker on my list is the Foreign Minister of Austria, Sebastian Kurz. Sebastian, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Federica Mogherini spoke for the whole EU, but please give me now the chance to add the Austrian perspective. For me, it's a great pleasure to welcome you're all in Vienna, and as you can imagine, Austria is extremely proud to host the CTBT. We consider it to be a core element in our efforts to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons. And as Secretary General Ban Ki-moon once said, there are no right hands for the wrong weapons. Certainly, too little has happened so far, but we see a growing new momentum for concrete progress on this issue. The humanitarian pledge that emerged from the Vienna conference in December 2014 has now been formally endorsed by 128 states. And a growing number of states favor the start of negotiations on a global prohibition of nuclear weapons. Austria strongly supports the elaboration of such a treaty. Excellencies, it won't surprise you that we also strongly believe that the world has to close the door on nuclear testing once and for all. 20 years after its adoption, it must bring into force the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The CTBTO has demonstrated over and over again that it is useful. Examples reach from tsunami warnings to the recent nuclear tests by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The fact that the treaty still cannot enter into force because 8 ratifications are still missing is a shame. Excellencies, let me end by thanking you, Mr. Zerbo, and your team for all the work you are doing, and I can assure you that Austria will continue to push for concrete process on this crucial issue for all of us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister Kurz. Now, Minister Erlan Idrisov of Kazakhstan is asked to take the floor. Minister, you have the floor.
It's working. Dear participants, dear Dr. Lasina Zerbo, dear friends, let me first of all warmly welcome today's participants and express my sincere gratitude and appreciation for all your contributions to achieving the nuclear test ban, nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. 2016 is a special year. It marks 20 years since the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. 2016 also marks the 25th year since the Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan was closed for good. These two important events are inextricably linked. In closing one of the world's largest test sites, Kazakhstan's President Nursultan Nazarbayev made history as the first to legally ban nuclear tests. It was not long before other nuclear test sites followed Semipalatinsk's lead, allowing for the unique conditions needed to ensure the ban for nuclear tests becoming a global phenomenon. The day the test site was closed, August 29, 1991, paved the way for adoption of the CTBT. It is very symbolic that August 29 is now recognized by the United Nations as the International Day Against Nuclear Tests and is now commemorated across the world. Kazakhstan welcomes the efforts of the Executive Secretary, Dr. Zerbo, to generate widespread awareness of this important date. We also reiterate our immense gratitude to the countries that have supported the respective UN General Assembly resolution. Another well-known initiative of Kazakhstan is the Atom Project, which stands for Abolish Testing Our Mission. The project is prominent and is committed to creating global support for final and irrevocable nuclear test ban, while engaging the general public across the world. By telling about the consequences of nuclear weapons tests, it encourages anyone who opposes nuclear weapons to sign an online petition urging governments to permanently abandon nuclear testing and help ensure the CTBT is achieved. We are grateful to those who have so far supported the initiative and strongly urge others to sign the online petition. You can sign it today, right here at this meeting. At the beginning of this year, President Nazarbayev introduced a new and very important initiative, the manifesto entitled "The World, the 21st Century." In this visionary document, my President suggests that the international community develop a holistic plan to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons and ultimately of wars. It highlights the need to create sustainable peace, to eliminate military blocs which impede broader international cooperation, to adapt the international disarmament process to new historic realities, and to ensure fair global competition in international trade, finance and development. I am confident that this initiative can guide the international community in achieving our common goals of ensuring a safe world and strengthening the stability of our planet. 20 years ago, a UN General Assembly resolution adopted the CTBT. 20 years is a long period, as was mentioned by previous speakers. But the treaty, which was designed to be a key element of the international security system, has not yet entered into force. Over the last few years, we have seen some progress in the gradual universalization of the treaty. However, since Indonesia ratified the treaty in 2012, there still remains 8 countries yet to do so. We believe that the reason CTBT hasn't entered into force is a lack of political will in the 8 Annex II states. We strongly urge these states to ratify the treaty as soon as possible, without any preconditions. The principle of the nuclear test ban is generally observed. However, we are deeply concerned with the situation around the DPRK's nuclear tests. North Korea is the only state which continues to test nuclear weapons in the 21st century, despite protests and condemnation from the entire world community. Kazakhstan strongly condemns the actions of the DPRK's leadership, which not only cause serious damage to the efforts of the international community on nuclear disarmament, but also undermine efforts to ensure the CTBT entrance into force. We call upon Pyongyang to stop this totally unacceptable practice, renounce nuclear ambitions, and sign and ratify the CTBT as soon as it is possible. The treaty and related efforts have so far proved effective. I am confident that its impact will increase significantly after the CTBT enters into force. Considerable progress has been made in creating and deploying the international monitoring system and certifying new stations. It should be noted that the system, even in its uncompleted state, have helped to identify all nuclear tests conducted by the DPRK, including the most recent in January. All underground nuclear explosions were successfully registered, including by Kazakh stations connected to the IMS. We should also commend measures taken by the CTBTO on strengthening the verification regime, as well as conducting on-site inspections and field experiments. Initiatives of Dr. Zerbo to convene the youth group and the group of eminent persons have also helped draw the public attention to nuclear test ban issues. As coordinators of Article 14, Kazakhstan and Japan conduct consistent work to help facilitate the entry into force of the CTBT. Kazakhstan and Japan adopted the top-level joint statement last October by President Nazarbayev and Prime Minister Abe, and this year issued two other statements at the Nuclear Summit in Washington and Open-Ended Working Group in Geneva. We continue our efforts on the Annex II and Annex I states to make the CTBT universal. I believe that the meeting of CTBT friends held during the UN General Assembly represented an important platform to discuss issues related to the entry into force of the treaty. As a nation, we are also taking important steps domestically to ensure treaties entry into force. This August, Almaty will host the 9th International Conference under the title Monitoring of Nuclear Tests and Their Consequences. The conference is focused on facilitating the entry into force of the CTBT. Astana will also host at the end of August a major international conference commemorating the 25th anniversary since the closure of the Semipalatinsk testing site. I would like to inform you that Kazakhstan intends to build a radionuclide control and noble gas station. It will help considerably intensify the capabilities of the CTBT monitoring system, and it will be our significant contribution to the nuclear test ban process. In conclusion, I would like to wish all of us success in achieving our common noble goal, prohibition of nuclear tests and building a world free from nuclear threat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Itisov. And now I give the floor to Minister Geoffrey Onyema, Foreign Minister of Nigeria.
Mr. Chairman, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania, the Executive Secretary of CTBTO, Ministers, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we would like to also express our sympathy and condolences to the government and people of the United States on the latest terrorist outrage. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Nigerian delegation, may I congratulate you on your election as Chairman of the 46th session of the Preparatory Commission facilitating the entry into force of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, which is taking place in Vienna here today. I have every confidence that your leadership style will provide the necessary impetus in spurring us to success, and also in the coming into effect very soon, we hope, of the CTBT. I would like to express our appreciation to the Executive Secretary, Dr. Lassine Zerbo, and the Provisional Technical Secretariat for their untiring efforts and commitment to the ideals of the organization, and also thank and congratulate them on the excellent preparations made for this meeting. Mr. Chairman, this ministerial meeting is very special as it marks the 20th anniversary of the CTBTO opening signature. Nigeria believes this meeting provides an opportunity for all of us to reflect on the successes already achieved by the Preparatory Commission, particularly in its verification regime. It also provides us an opportunity to jointly assess the challenges confronting the CTBT and the reasons why the treaty has not come into effect. My delegation would like to commend the efforts of the group of eminent persons for adopting the Hiroshima Declaration, which, among other things, calls on states concerned to heed the plea of the international community to opt for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation by refraining from any further nuclear weapon tests, and also to subsequently sign and ratify the treaty to enable it to come into force. I'm also gratified that the youth group have joined the bandwagon that will carry the banner of CTBTO higher to ensure the long-awaited coming into effect of the treaty. The support of the CTBTO youth group all over the world gives us all the hope for the future of the treaty. Mr. Chairman, Nigeria signed the treaty on the 8th of September 2000 and subsequently deposited its instrument of ratification of the CTBT with the Secretary General of the United Nations on the 27th of September 2001. Nigeria's participation in this ministerial meeting is therefore to further demonstrate our strong resolve to support the universality of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Finally, it is my hope, therefore, that in the not-too-distant future, ratifications by all Annex II states would have taken place so that this very important treaty for mankind can finally enter into force. Wish you successful deliberations, and I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. And now I give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Slovakia, Miroslav Lajčák. Miro, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairperson, dear Executive Secretary, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We have gathered here today to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the opening for signature of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. This occasion allows us to contemplate more deeply on what we have achieved over this period, and also gives us an opportunity to look forward to the future together. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty is an indispensable building block within the complex and intertwined nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation architecture. Together with the Non-Proliferation Treaty, it represents one of its central pillars. It thus contributes substantially to strengthening of the global peace, security, and stability. Common understanding of CTBT's real value is best demonstrated by achieving its near universal adherence. The nuclear test moratorium has become a de facto international norm. It has had positive effects on the international security environment. In 20 years, the CTBTO Preparatory Commission and signatory states have together managed to create a system capable of monitoring and detecting nuclear explosions anywhere on Earth. Taking into account its global scale, it really is an enormous achievement. The international monitoring system is nearly complete. It is robust and effective. It has already contributed to critical scientific data on many key issues. They range from tsunami warnings to tracking radioactivity and nuclear reactor accidents. We can be pleased with all of this. At the same time, we cannot turn a blind eye to some other facts on the ground. Sure, the 20th anniversary of the CTBT is an opportunity to highlight its achievements. Yet it is also an occasion to focus on what still needs to be done. Despite all the efforts, the treaty has not yet entered into force. We need to finish what has been started in Geneva 20 years ago. With every new ratification and signature of the CTBT, we are one step closer to this goal. We also recognize that the CTBT Annex II countries bear a special responsibility for the treaty to enter into force. Slovakia thus continuously calls on all states that have not signed or ratified the CTBT to do so without delay. And this pertains especially to the remaining Annex II countries. Without the legally binding treaty, nuclear test moratorium also remains a fragile accomplishment. The latest North Korean nuclear test shows the urgency to put the CTBTO and its full verification regime in place. On the other hand, this case has proved that the monitoring system works and it's reliable. Ladies and gentlemen, this gathering is also a moment to think how each state can best contribute to the CTBT goals. We are aware that when the treaty enters into force, the CTBTO engagement will be very extensive, and the verification regime must be then fully operational. So in our view, it is crucial to support activities of the Provisional Technical Secretariat in technical terms. It should help it fulfill its mandate, including the training of inspectors and testing of monitoring devices. Our special appreciation goes to the Executive Secretary, Mr. Lassina Zerbo, for his professionalism and personal engagement in his efforts for full legal standing of the CTBT. Slovakia is committed to actively contribute to building up the verification regime. We see our particular role through hosting various exercises on our territory. Busy cooperation between Slovakia and the Provisional Secretariat started already in 2001. This year, Slovakia will host on-site inspection course for some 80 trainees from around the world. The participants will acquire basic skills needed for conducting on-site inspections. We are ready to provide our available capacities and expertise also in the future. Additionally, I am pleased to announce that the agreement between Slovakia and the Preparatory Commission related to on-site inspections has been ratified last year. Mr. Chairperson, ladies and gentlemen, allow me in conclusion to reiterate that Slovakia will continue to support the CTBT. We stand ready to deepen our existing cooperation with the Provisional Technical Secretariat with the aim of achieving our common goal, to strengthen the global peace, security and stability. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. Et maintenant, la parole est à...
And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Alpha Barry, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and of Cooperation of Burkina Faso. You have the floor, Minister. Thank you. I'd like to start by conveying my sincere condolences to the government and people of the United States of America for the massacre in Orlando, and also to all countries who have recently been subjected to terrorist attacks as well elsewhere. My condolences and sympathy to their families. Sir, it is a great pleasure to see you, Mr. Cominescu, in the chair for this ministerial meeting. I'm sure that with your enlightened guidance, our work will be crowned with success, and I can certainly assure you the total cooperation of the Burkina Faso delegation that I'm heading. I'd also like to welcome the grand mobilization of the ministers, heads of delegation of the signatory states of the CTBT, of international agency representatives, the high representatives, international organizations and intergovernmental organizations, of distinguished guests and the representative of civil society, the academia, media, in this 46th session of the Preparatory Commission. The fact that this mobilization has taken place demonstrates the interest of the entire international community towards the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty and the necessary synergy of action necessary for its entry into force. We can legitimately already be satisfied, even if this present session is in a very particular context of the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. My delegation would like to endorse this statement, which will be pronounced on behalf of the African group. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank and warmly congratulate the Executive Secretary, Dr. Lassina Zerbo, and all of the staff of the PTS of the PrepCom for their many efforts to do their work with such devotion. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, CTBT, is entrusted with contributing to the promotion of peace and international security, and it is presently at a crucial stage in its development because the entry into force of the treaty, which has created the organization, is still awaited, and this 20 years after its opening to signature. Thus, the concerns which have been expressed by some delegations because of this state of affairs are quite legitimate, given the importance of the multilateral agreement to disarm and the noble objectives it pursues. From this point of view, the celebration of the CTBT's 20th anniversary is a very good time indeed to take stock and together reflect upon the ways and means to facilitate its earliest entry into force. It is clear that since the establishment of the Preparatory Commission, the CTBT, even though it hasn't gone into force yet, is growing very well, and we can already be satisfied with all of the keys which have been accumulated in the field of disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation, because of the reliability which has been demonstrated several times of the international monitoring system, the effectiveness which has been proved of the International Data Center, and the productivity which has been proven of the global communications infrastructure. We must also be satisfied with the constant dedicated efforts of the international community to work for the entry into force of the CTBT and of all other existing legal instruments which have allowed for most states to already abide by the provisions of the treaty and thereby reinforce peace and security in the world. Except for one case, no country has, since the end of the 1990s, proceeded to a nuclear test. Chair, distinguished delegates, because this is one of the most important issues having to do with aspects which are determining for security and the survival of mankind, it is necessary to work together to strengthen the prevention mechanisms, verification protection mechanisms, as well as the final resolution of legal concerns. The delegation of Burkina Faso would like to urgently call upon all to exert more efforts even to consolidate the results already scored, especially via earliest entry into force as well as universalization of the treaty. This is a shared responsibility which is both individual and collective and concerns both nuclear weapon states as well as non-nuclear weapon states. We are all called upon to resolve the important problems at hand, to empower the treaty with all its proper means. Otherwise, the risk is very great that the organization and the basic treaty become inoperable, and this is certainly not what we wish to see come to pass. This is why Burkina Faso signed and ratified the CTBT respectively on 27 September 96 and 17 April 2002. And we'd like to exhort all states not yet having done so, in particular Annex II states, to sign and ratify the treaty as quickly as possible. No effort should be spared for the complete finalization of this very important multilateral treaty. We have more reasons to do this than ever before, because of aspects which are strictly linked to disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation, because the treaty presents enormous potential in terms of civil and scientific applications. Thus, it furnishes responses and solutions for natural disasters and threats, for tsunami alerts, for climate change and environmental monitoring, etc. Chairman, aware of its responsibilities, Africa has resolutely committed itself to unreserved support of nuclear non-proliferation efforts of the international community. 15 July 2009, the Treaty of Pelindaba went into force, thereby setting up a nuclear weapon-free zone in Africa, and this is one of the best demonstrations of that. As concerns the number of countries already having joined the CTBT, indeed, 51 of the 54 states in our continent are treaty signatories, and 44 have already ratified. Isn't this really a sign of the clear determination of Africa to participate in the reinforcement of peace and international security, and its irreversible option for the peaceful use of nuclear technologies for socio-economic development ends? Chairman, to conclude, I'd like to reiterate the congratulations of my delegation to Dr. Lassina Zerbo, and here I'd like to not forget his predecessors, Mr. Wolfgang Hoffmann and Mr. Tibor Todt, for their excellent work accomplished for over 20 years at the head of the preparatory commission of the CTBT. Their commitment and leadership have enabled the treaty and the organization to accumulate advances that we can all be proud of. I can assure Dr. Gerbo, the President's Executive Secretary, the constant support of the Head of State and Government of Burkina Faso to achieve the objectives that the signatory states have established for the Commission. We hope that Dr. Gerbo will continue to work within the framework of yet another mandate heading our Commission. Chairman, in the context of an increasingly complex world, disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation challenges are numerous, multiform, and multidimensional. The earliest entry into force of the CTBT becomes ever more urgent than before because it's important to thereby contribute to global efforts to reinforce international security. Our responsibility is grand, and we must shoulder this properly in order to have future generations inherit a world of peace, which is more sure and secure.
Proceeding further with our work, I think that the Secretary of the PrepCom has an announcement to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. This is a reminder that the roundtable is going to start at Ministerial Roundtable at 11:30 in room M2. Our colleagues are available to lead you at the end of this conference room to room M2. Thank you, Mr. Minister.
Thank you very much. And now give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Mr. Pavlo Klimkin. Pavlo, you have the floor.
Microphone, please.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let me first join those who expressed their condolences to the relatives and loved ones of the horrifying terrorist acts in Orlando. It proves the case for all of us to follow and, what is critically important, to deliver on combating terrorism. Ukraine highly appreciates the significance of this meeting. The universalization of the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty remains one of the key objectives of the multilateral efforts in the area of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Ukraine's historic decision to become a non-nuclear weapon state has accorded Ukraine a lead position in the international community's quest to abolish nuclear weapons. We consistently stand for reducing the nuclear arsenals, stopping the modernization of nuclear weapons, and overall decrease of nuclear weapons' role in military and strategic doctrines of all the states. We are encouraged by the signing of the treaty by 183 states and welcome the ratification of the treaty by 164 states, including 36 of the 44 Annex II states, whose ratification is needed for its entry into force. At the same time, we are confident that nuclear test moratorium voluntarily declared by different states plays a necessary but not sufficient role, as it never replaced the legally binding nature of CTBT. Therefore, Ukraine calls upon all states which had yet to sign or ratify the CTBT, in particular the 8 remaining Annex II states, to do it without delay. The international nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation process is still confronted with serious challenges. Announced by the DPRK, the fourth nuclear test on 6th of January 2016 followed its nuclear tests in 2006, 2009 in 2013 proved the urgent necessity of entry into force of the CTBT and its universalization. Ukraine is deeply concerned by the statements of high officials of the DPRK regarding yet another recent nuclear test. Its actions are seen as a grave violation of the UN Security Council resolutions and may lead to further significant aggravation of the situation on the Korean Peninsula. Moreover, it's one of the most serious threats to the international peace and security. Ukraine expects DPRK to stop the test of nuclear devices, to adhere to respective UN Security Council resolutions, and to renew its dialogue with the IAEA. In this regard, issues of non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction will be in the focus of our attention during Ukraine's non-permanent membership in the UN Security Council. The other challenge to the non-proliferation and disarmament comes out of Russian aggression in the east of Ukraine and Crimea. Disregarding all international rules and norms, Russia invaded the nuclear sites which are based at the Ukrainian territory, Crimea. Russian Federation continues to declare its rights to deploy nuclear weapons on the Ukraine territory, particularly Crimea. Russian occupants are thoroughly restored Soviet-era nuclear storage facilities and have already deployed the means of nuclear weapons delivery, like warships and combat aircrafts, at the occupied territories of Ukraine. Russia's behavior is not only a threat to the nuclear security, particularly to the Ukrainian research nuclear facilities in Crimea, but also one of the biggest challenges to the global nuclear security. In this regard, we urge the international community to stop nuclear proliferation and mitigate threats emerging from the Russian aggression in all possible ways. Mr. Chairman, we are encouraged by the CTBTO Preparatory Commission's efforts to establish the treaty's verification and monitoring system that would provide a credible and effective way to monitor treaty's compliance. Though the treaty has not yet come into force, we should continue to build up a technologically advanced verification system, which, in addition to the primary purposes of the CTBTO related to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, will be capable of bringing tangible scientific and civil benefits. In its turn, Ukraine is making its own contribution to the development of the CTBTO international monitoring system by hosting in Malin, Ukraine, primary seismic station PS45 of the international monitoring system. The PS45 is one of the best world stations designed for identification of location of nuclear explosion sources. Favorable geographic location enables the station to register maximum amount of sources which originated on the territory on the Earth sphere. Such benefits cause the necessity of its inclusion to the international monitoring system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now the floor is to Minister Igor Crnodak from Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, Bosnia and Herzegovina attaches high importance to the nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament process and strongly support its values. We recognize that the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty has an essential role to play in strengthening global peace and security. The CTBT has made a strong contribution to the establishment of international norms in the area of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. However, we have to admit that it is a source of legitimate concerns that 20 years after having been open for signature, the prospect of CTBT entry into force remain blurred. The entry into force of this treaty within the broader framework of multilateral non-proliferation and disarmament efforts is urgent. In this context, I hope that this meeting today will produce concrete outcome in demonstrating the determination of all those who are committed to endorse the entry into force of CTBT. I would like to also encourage all states to redouble diplomatic efforts to bring the CTBT into force. Mr. Chairman, before the CTBT is concluded, 20 years ago, in 1996, the world had conducted 2,044 nuclear explosions in the atmosphere, underwater and underground. Since then, an informal moratorium has been in effect, and we have seen dramatically reduced number of nuclear test explosions. Although the voluntary adherence to such a moratorium is of the highest importance, it does not have the same permanent and legally binding effect as the entry into force of this treaty. Comprehensive prohibition of any nuclear weapons, test explosion, or any other nuclear explosion must be a legal obligation for all states and at any place around the world. By facilitating its entry into force and ensuring its effective implementation, we will considerably strengthen the world's security, and we will make the world a better place for us and for future generations. In closing, let me assure you that Bosnia and Herzegovina will continue supporting the CTBT and remains engaged in the common efforts to promote further actions to facilitate its entry into force and nuclear non-proliferation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister. Next on my list is the Minister of Science and Technology of the Philippines, His Excellency Mr. Mario Montejo. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Minister Lazar Comenescu, CBTO Executive Secretary Dr. Lazena Zerbo, Excellencies, distinguished guests, a pleasant good morning to all. On behalf of the Philippine government and the Filipino people, I wish to convey our sincere appreciation to the Commission for this invitation to participate in the 46th session of the CTBTO PrepCom and the commemoration of the historic 20th anniversary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The Philippines recognizes that 2016 is a significant milestone in the history of CTBT, as it marks the 20th anniversary since the treaty was opened up for signing in 1996. However, the Philippines notes with great concern that the treaty has yet to come to force. The Philippines therefore urges the 8 Annex II states that have not yet ratified nor signed the treaty to summon the political will and take urgent steps to sign and ratify this important document at the soonest possible time. We, the CTBT state signatories, must be unrelenting and vigorous in our efforts to persuade the Annex II states to sign and ratify the treaty in order to uphold and strengthen the universality of the CTBT. While the CTBT responds to crises as they arise, the organization's mandate should be legitimized through the signing and ratification of the remaining states so that CTBTO can fulfill its roles and function effectively and efficiently. The Philippines has consistently supported the call for early entry into force of the CTBT and has been active in promoting CTBT through bilateral and multilateral diplomacy. The Philippines recognizes the critical role of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty as a key confidence-building measure to promote cooperation with other states in strengthening the global disarmament and non-proliferation regime. Its early entry into force will give a critical boost to global efforts to rid the world of nuclear weapons. The Philippines note with great concern the current security flashpoint posed by 4 nuclear tests conducted in 2006, 2009, 2013, and 2016 by the DPRK. To date, DPRK is the only state that has conducted nuclear tests in the 21st century. We join the international community in condemning any violation of pertinent UN Security Council resolution and renew our call on the DPRK to desist from continuing this act of provocation and abandon all its nuclear weapon programs in the interest of regional and international peace and stability. We further urge the DPRK to join the 183 state signatories of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. The Philippines supports the early resumption of the 6-party talks as an effective mechanism for dealing with the DPRK nuclear issue. We call on the DPRK to fully comply with its commitment under the 19 September 2005 joint statement of the 6-party talks, as well as its obligation under all relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions. The Philippines is strongly committed to maintaining international and regional peace and stability, promoting a nuclear weapon-free world, and ensuring the country's protection from the threat or use of weapons of mass destruction. Thus, the Philippines' stance on nuclear disarmament is also consistent with the 3rd pillar of nuclear foreign policy, the protection of Filipino nationals overseas. As many Filipinos live and work in areas where the nuclear threat exists and persists. In terms of regional security, the Philippines strongly believes that a nuclear weapons-free zone is a vital component in the task of enhancing regional security and reinforcing the NPT-based global nuclear non-proliferation regime. The Philippines will therefore continue to work with its ASEAN partners to ensure effective implementation of the Southeast Asia nuclear weapons-free zone. Let me take this opportunity to commend the tremendous efforts of the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization for the establishment of a comprehensive and verification regime. The CTBTO International Monitoring System and the International Data Center in particular have recently provided highly reliable data on the nuclear tests conducted by North Korea last 6th of January 2016. Finally, the Philippines commends the dynamism and perseverance of the Commission under the leadership of its Executive Secretary, Dr. Lassina Zerbo, in its relentless pursuit of the vision and objective of CTBTO. As host of 3 certified monitoring facilities, the Philippines likewise appreciate PTS assistance in upgrading and maintenance of these facilities. Furthermore, we are thankful for the capacity building and training provided by PTS to our National Data Center. We look forward to a highly productive 40X session of the PrepCom of the CTBTO. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Minister. Before we proceed further with the list of speakers, the Secretariat would like to screen a short movie which is called CTBT20 Curtain Raiser film. So for a couple of minutes or so, you are invited to watch the movie. Thank you.
I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, the time of the Cold War. It was a world with an undercurrent of fear. I vowed not to pass that fear down to my children. Bomb away.
We in this hall shall be remembered either as part of the generation that turned this planet into a flaming funeral pyre, or the generation that met its vow to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war.
18 years ago in Northern Ireland, the treaty was signed, ratified and crucially implemented to bring new hope. Its passage hasn't always been smooth, but the fear faded. On the global stage, we had new hope. 20 years ago, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty with the potential to stop the horror of nuclear testing. What stopped us from bringing that treaty into force? We're not talking about a gesture of kindness here. A fully implemented test ban treaty is not a gift. It's not a celebration of largesse or generosity of spirit. It's fundamental. It's a right. Instead of this, we could have a world like this. A world without fear. That's what I want for you. What so many of us want, so many nations. All human life is precious. To threaten it is arrogance. To take it, the ultimate arrogance. To threaten to take it on such a large scale is an outrage. So, here we are, 20 years on. Which way will we go? Which way?
Distinguished delegates, let us now continue with the list of speakers. The next on my list is the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Sudan, His Excellency Mr. Kamal al-Din Ismail Said Abdel Rahim. Minister, you have the floor.
Bismillah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the African Group. Mr. Chairman, in the outset, the African Group is pleased to see you, Your Excellency Lazar Komorowski, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Romania, chairing this meeting. We would like to assure you of our full cooperation and support on this agenda item. The African Group expresses its appreciation of the CTBTO Executive Secretary, Mr. Lassania Zerbo, for his opening remarks. The African Group would like to take this opportunity to thank the Executive Secretary for his commitment in supporting the work of the PrepCom of the CTBTO. we would like to also to extend our appreciations to the Professional Technical Secretariat for its effort in preparing this meeting. Mr. Chairman, the African states expressed their satisfactions in taking part with other states signatories in this event to mark the 20th anniversary of the opening for the signature of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, and to discuss concrete measures to facilitate its urgent entry into force. The African Group confirms that the treaty constitutes a fundamental instrument in the field of nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. In this regard, the group confirms its deep concern of the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of any use of nuclear weapons. The African Group welcomes the 183 states have signed and 164 states have ratified the CTBT. This significant progress achieved during the last 20 years should not blind us that on the eve of the 20th anniversary of its opening for signature, the treaty is regrettably yet to enter into force. In this connection, the group is convinced that that entry into force of the treaty will give new push to the effort of the international community in the field of disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation. Therefore, the African Group calls upon all parties that have not yet signed or ratified the treaty to do so without any further delay. Mr. Chairman, the African Group is proud that upon entry into force of the African Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty, the PLANDAPA Treaty, the African states emphasize again their engagement in making the African continent a region free of nuclear weapons in a legally binding format and commit to prohibit testing of any nuclear explosive device on their territories. We as well as not to assist or encourage any nuclear explosive device by any state anywhere. The African Group urges the international community to learn from the African experience and similar initiative establishing other nuclear weapons-free zones in order to work together and achieve significant steps towards a world free of weapons of mass destruction. Mr. Chairman, the African Group would like to underline that the African continent could contribute strongly to the CTBT verification regime. Once completed, the international monitoring system will include 38 monitoring facilities located in 24 African states, of which 21 are seismic stations, 9 infrasound stations, 7 radionuclide stations, and 1 radionuclide laboratory. In this connection, the African Group is looking for more engagement in the other pillars of the verification regime, namely international data center and on-site inspections-related activities. The African Group confirms that the objective of the Preparatory Commission is to prepare for an entry into force of the treaty and to establish, provisionally operate, test, and evaluate the verification regime. In this regard, the group welcomes that the CTBT verification regime has scientific and civil benefits for all. These benefits should not divert or change the mandate of the PRIPCAM in any case. In addition, the group reiterates the utmost importance building capacity for the African states in all verifications regime technologies. Mr. Chairman, finally, the group thanks Executive Secretary for his prominent and effective effort in promoting the treaty and also commends the PTS for its work in this regard. The group believes that these activities are to uphold the treaty at the heart of the international agenda and to explore closer avenues for enhanced cooperation between the Commission and relevant policy-making institutions. To this end, the group encourages the Executive Secretary to continue raising awareness of engaging opinion makers as well as educational institutions in those states that have not yet signed or ratified the treaty, yet as a means to create a necessary dialogue on the treaty. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you indeed, Minister. Next on my list is the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Belgium, His Excellency Mr. Armand de Decker. Minister, you have the floor.
Monsieur le Président,
Chairman, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Belgium is completely in support of the European Union statement as pronounced by the High Representative, Mrs. Mogherini, Vice Chairman of the European Commission. This 20th anniversary of the treaty signature is something that gives us the opportunity to take stock of the achievements of the last 2 decades. It also gives us the opportunity to work for the entry into force of this treaty. The accession by a majority of countries to this treaty, as well as the gradual establishment of a verification system, have made for the emergence of an international de facto norm against nuclear testing. Thanks to this norm, which has been violated by one single country only, we are progressing towards our objective of nuclear disarmament and a break should be put to the proliferation of nuclear weapons, the development of new, more evolved kinds of weapons. This present international standard or norm should be made irreversible and become legally binding. My country would thus like to call upon the universalization of this treaty for the complete implementation of its verification regime and the transparent dismantling of all nuclear testing facilities. How can we fail to recognize that this treaty has not entered into force and that the accession of the 8 so-called Annex 2 countries remains necessary to reach this goal of ours? Let us take advantage of this meeting to determine what can be done. It is not enough just to have a debate among those already in favor of this development. It's necessary to have innovative ideas in order to register progress on all fronts. So let's take a look at the verification system to start off with. The implementation of a station network allowing the global collection and analysis of relevant data, be they seismic, hydroacoustic, infrasound, and radionuclide, has taken place, and the efficiency of this network has already been demonstrated during the North Korean nuclear testing that has taken place. The system, however, has not yet reached an ideal level of performance because of a lack of inspections in the field. Only radionuclide analysis can give irrefutable proof of nuclear testing for the time being. This demonstrates the central place and role played by radionuclide stations within the CTBT network. Proper distribution and operation of these stations is of essential importance, just as is an optimal scientific analysis capability. This latter aspect is within the responsibility of the concerned states. Belgium doesn't have a station on its territory, but it is fully committed to the consideration of the impact of the verification system of xenon radioactive emissions, which are coming from medical isotope production sites. It is important to guarantee the reliability of an international monitoring system for nuclear explosions and to thereby reinforce the credibility of the treaty. Belgium commits itself to continuing scientific research and to facilitating dialogue amongst all the players, as we've already demonstrated by hosting a technical workshop in Brussels in May 2015. The medical radioisotope production sector in Belgium is fully associated in this effort, and our National Institute for Radioelements is the prime producer of radioisotopes in the world and has committed itself in writing to the CTBT that it will be cooperating with this latter to attenuate the effects of rare gas emissions. The strengthening of the verification regime must go hand in hand with the efforts which are strengthened working to the earliest entry into force of the CTBT. A dialogue at all levels with the states remaining outside the treaty must be stepped up. My country is in favor of the initiatives of the Executive Secretary to expand the partnership network within the countries concerned. We believe in the youth ambassadors concept development, which has been properly noted in Belgium. Strategically, we see that there's some evolution, some developments that have to be supported. However, we don't see any real will to progress. Some states are just not cooperating, and this is why it's necessary to recognize that for the time being we're at a standstill. Special responsibility is that of the states which are Annex II states, the joining of which is indispensable for the EIF of the treaty. Let us reaffirm once again that accession to the treaty cannot be subordinated to the action of other states. Indeed, it is necessary to note that the joining of the CTBT of only one of the two nuclear superpowers is an example of the fact that it is necessary for no states to be subjected to any negative impact by such decisions. Apart from the traditional diplomatic mechanisms, I think that we should try to think out of the package. Why not try setting up a nuclear test ban-free zone in the areas and regions where CTBT accession is still a lacuna? That might work. Furthermore, to ensure the viability of the treaty, we should honor our financial commitments. My country is contributing €1 million a year in addition to our participation to EU activities, and we're going to be pursuing our commitment even in times of budgetary difficulty. The status quo in terms of CTBT signatures is just not acceptable. The importance of the EIF of the treaty has been clearly demonstrated during the last nuclear test on the part of the DPRK last January, which was firmly condemned by the international community. Let us no longer wait as we celebrate this 20th anniversary. It is necessary for us to act together with determination to work for the EIF of the CTBT. Thank you.
Monsieur le Ministre, next on my list is the Minister of State for the Diaspora and Overseas Development Aid of Ireland, Mr. Joe McHugh. You have the floor, Minister.
At the outset, I wish to be associated with the remarks and express my sympathy to the American people on their tragic loss yesterday. Chairman, Executive, Secretary, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Tá Harvey Sasta bheith an seo libse son an rialtas ag an ácaid fiche bliain. It is an honour for me, on behalf of the Government of Ireland, to attend this high-level meeting in Vienna on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. At the outset, I also want to say I was to endorse the earlier statement of the High Representative of the EU. On this 20th anniversary, it is important that we should recognise the benefits which we have garnered from the treaty's adoption. Today we can say that the large number of signatories and the degree of adherence to the CTBT represents a strong international de facto legal norm against nuclear weapon testing. It is also important to highlight the benefits accruing from the international monitoring system, which is so close to completion, in enhancing our capacity to detect and analyse seismic or tsunami activity. These tangible benefits of the technical expertise on which the treaty is based are of incalculable benefit to humanity as a whole. Last month, Ireland was honoured to host an international workshop of data centres. This was held at Ireland's National Data Centre, which is located at the Dublin Institute for Advanced Studies. The workshop was organised in cooperation with the Provisional Technical Secretariat of the CTBT20, was attended by some 80 participants from almost 30 states, and it was a good opportunity to commemorate Irishman Robert Mallet, the famous geophysicist and the father of seismology. The infrastructure established by the Provisional Technical Secretariat will play an important verification role when the treaty enters into force. Ireland has always strongly supported the treaty. We see it as an essential element in the global nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime which is built around the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. As noted by Executive Secretary Zerbo at the 2015 NPT Review Conference, the CTBT and other international instruments bring the rule of law to what would otherwise be a lawless and dangerous situation. By prohibiting all nuclear testing, the CTBT inhibits states from developing new nuclear weapons. It is therefore an important step along the path to a world without nuclear weapons, with their devastating consequences for all of humanity. We fully endorse the comments of the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon that there are no right hands for the wrong weapons. Ireland has been to the forefront of raising awareness of the gendered impact of these weapons and the need for women's engagement in the nuclear disarmament agenda. As recently appointed Minister for International Development, I attended the World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul last month. It was here that Ireland were honoured to co-host a side event on the humanitarian impact of nuclear weapons, highlighting the unacceptable risks associated with these weapons. The risk that these weapons pose to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals should be of the greatest possible concern. Ireland deeply regrets the failure to reach an outcome document at the 2015 NPT Review Conference. We welcome the constructive engagement of an overwhelming majority of states at the open-ended working group on nuclear disarmament taking place this year in Geneva, in which Ireland is fully engaged. The 20th anniversary is another opportunity to demonstrate the international community, including our partners in civil society, can work constructively together in pursuit of the common good. And in this regard, we should continue to press for the full universalisation of the CTBT. It is the firm view of Ireland and the European Union that the treaty must enter into force. We believe the treaty's entry into force would be an important step along the path to a world without nuclear weapons. Ireland will continue to pursue all diplomatic avenues to encourage those states who remain outside the treaty to sign and ratify without further delay. I want to finally acknowledge the organisation for putting together that video. It brought back a lot of memories for me as somebody who grew up during the Troubles in my own country, and I think it makes a very, very strong statement in terms of how quickly time moves on. And it reminded me of an Irish expression that I've used a number of times: Tan dulga jorin a lig go dí an glúin seo, agus go dí an glúin seo hugging, go dí an glúin seo roin. We all have a responsibility, you and me, towards this generation and towards the next. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Minister. Next on my list is the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs of Spain, His Excellency Mr. Ignacio Ibáñez Rubio. You have the floor, sir. Then I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of China, His Excellency Mr. Li Baodong. You have the floor, Vice Minister.
Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, first of all, on behalf of the Chinese delegation, I would like to extend congratulations to the opening of this ministerial meeting. I would also like to extend our appreciation and thanks to the Romania delegation and the Provisional Secretariat of the Preparatory Commission for their tremendous work in preparing for this meeting. Mr. Chairman, 20 years ago, the conclusion of the CTBT marked an important milestone in mankind's pursuit of common security. During the past 20 years, prohibition of nuclear tests has become an irreversible trend of the times. Nuclear arms race has been effectively forestalled, and the risks of nuclear wars have been notably reduced. It is fair to say that the CTBT has made indelible contribution to the endeavor of upholding international peace and security. The global landscape is now going through profound changes never seen in the past. The security of all countries is interlinked. Traditional and non-traditional threats to security interweave with each other, and the urgency to enhance global security governance becomes even more prominent. Promoting the early entry into force of the treaty and advancing nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation are not only our common mission entrusted by history, but also our shared responsibility to the future. Mr. Chairman, today we are gathering here to build on the political consensus of promoting the entry force of the treaty, and more importantly, to seek fundamental and effective means to achieve this goal. Take into account the development of international security situation. In this regard, China would like to propose the following. First, we should consolidate the political foundation of the entry into force of the treaty. Only common security can eradicate the root causes of the existence and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. We should abandon the zero-sum game and the Cold War mentality, make efforts to build a new type of international relations featuring win-win cooperation, respect all countries' reasonable security concerns, and solve hotspot issues peacefully through dialogue and negotiations. Second, we should solidify the institutional guarantee of the entry into force of the treaty. A sound international arms control and non-proliferation regime is essential. In this regard, we should honor relevant international obligations and commitments, maintain policy consistency, avoid double standards and discriminatory practices, hence constantly enhancing the authority and effectiveness of the international arms control and non-proliferation regime. Third, we should create favorable conditions for the entry into force of the treaty. The 5 nuclear weapon states should play an exemplary role by strictly observing the moratorium on nuclear tests while gradually reducing the role of nuclear weapons in their national security strategies and making explicit commitments on no first use of nuclear weapons and unconditional no use of nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states. Fourth, we should improve the technical capability required by the entry into force of the treaty. The PDS should be supported in its efforts in accordance with its mandate to steadily put forward the construction and maintenance of the RMS, sum up the outcomes of previous on-site inspection exercises, host more regional seminars and training courses, support the capacity building of developing countries. We should also expand the application of relevant technologies to fields such as disaster warning and environmental protection. Fifth, we should expand public support for the entry into force of the treaty. We should actively initiate different kinds of outreach activities to raise the influence and favorable impression of the treaty among the public. The PDS could continue to play an important coordinating role in helping states to conduct relevant activities and making full use of the group of eminent persons. Mr. Chairman, China is committed to taking the path of peaceful development and advocates for complete prohibition and thorough destruction of nuclear weapons. China has made commitment on no first use of nuclear weapons and has unconditionally undertaken not to use or threat to use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear weapon states and nuclear-free zones. China was among the first signatories of the treaty and has always supported the purposes and objectives of the treaty, honored the commitment of moratorium on nuclear tests, and supported relevant resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly. As one of the annexed two countries, China has been committed to facilitating the early entry into force of the treaty in a responsible manner. The Chinese government will continue to encourage the National People's Congress to discuss the ratification of the treaty. Meanwhile, we will continue to enhance public recognition to and support for the treaty through publicity and education activities. China attaches great importance to domestic preparation for the implementation of the treaty and has made steady progress in building monitoring stations in China. Thanks to our collaboration with the PDS, the testing and evaluation process of the 5 monitoring stations in China has reached a critical stage. In order to facilitate certification of all monitoring stations in China, China and the PDS have developed feasible roadmaps and established regular consultation mechanism to ensure steady advancement of the relevant processes. China has been deeply engaged in the work of the PrepCom and has made continuous contribution to enhancing the treaty's verification regime by supporting the on-site inspection exercises and co-hosting workshops and training courses. Last May, China and the PDS successfully co-hosted the 4th East Asia Regional NDC workshop. We are also planning to host a scientist-to-scientist workshop in Beijing later this year, and we welcome experts from other countries to participate in this workshop. Mr. Chairman, going forward, we have full confidence in the future and are also keenly aware of the long journey ahead. China will continue to work with all parties to promote the early entry into force of the treaty and make relentless efforts in pursuit of the lofty goal of complete prohibition and thorough destruction of nuclear weapons. Finally, I would like to wish a full success of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Minister. And now I would like to give the floor to the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs of Spain, His Excellency Mr. Ignacio Ibáñez Rubio. You have the floor, sir.
Señor Presidente, me sumo.
Mr. Chairman, I would join others in condemning the Orlando attack and offer sympathy to the United States. Spain endorses a statement made by the European High Representative at this commemorative ceremony of the 20th anniversary of opening for signature of the CTBT. This is a date that is tied closely to the international commitment to non-proliferation and rejection of atomic explosions universally. 20 years have gone by since the treaty was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly, and yet to date it has not entered into force because it does not have the necessary number of ratification. Thus, this is more than a celebration. It is an opportunity for our future. Over the 70 years since the first nuclear explosion in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, our planet has endured more than 2,000 nuclear explosions, and yet today, nuclear tests, whatever be the objective, have become a condemnable act. In 2006, United Nations Security Council Resolution 1718, the committee for which is chaired at present by Spain, condemned the nuclear tests by the DPRK. Later on, Resolution 1887 of the Security Council, adopted in 2009, called upon all states to refrain from nuclear tests, urging to sign and ratify the CTBT so that entry into force could be soon. Thus, we saw a progressive evolution of the moratorium on nuclear tests, transforming these into a universal value. And the testifying this is the only state with nuclear tests in the 21st century. The DPRK had a universal condemnation, as this caused grave preoccupation for the entire international community. Chairman, atomic test explosions cannot be seen as technical accomplishment. They tarnish the image of a country, and for that reason, Spain's commitment to the treaty is unequivocal. The objectives are among our priorities in foreign policy in Spain, who signed in 1996 and ratified in 1998. And Spain is one of the 44 states whose ratification is necessary for entry into force. This commemoration of the 20th anniversary of opening for signature should contribute to the essential objective of promoting entry into force. Today, we are facing a moral and political imperative, which means recognition of an accepted principle for the whole international community in the 21st century. The moratorium on nuclear tests has become a de facto international norm, a basic pillar of the non-proliferation regime, and a fundamental element for security, coexistence, and protection of our planet. This treaty is the legal framework with its provisions allowing to manage the complex mechanisms of verification, including confidence measures. Furthermore, we should strengthen the PrepCom, where even in difficult circumstances, we have seen the prevalence of the collective conscience of humanity. What we've been calling the Preparatory Commission for 20 years is a virtual international organization. Since 1996, our organization has set up efficient and advanced system for verification, demonstrating a high level of effectiveness with 282 certified stations, including the one in Toledo in Spain, and also an operational IDC. This is the fruit of our collective work, thousands of people in over 100 countries, over 2 decades and more. Through this work, the international community and public opinion, as well as civil society, have all become aware of risks associated to nuclear test explosions, looking at strategic and environmental safety and security. All states should contribute to promote entry into force of the treaty. We also need the support of civil society to make this happen. I thus call upon those states that have not as yet signed the treaty to do so without delay, and that all signatories ratify. In the meantime, and until that time, we must comply with the provisions of the treaty and consider ambitious options, including on a provisional and unilateral basis, while we continue to promote entry into force. This commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the treaty is a great opportunity to reflect on the future of the non-proliferation and disarmament regime, looking forward and thinking of future generations. The Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty is a key to global security for the present and the future. I am grateful to those who have worked over years to build this project. I am grateful to those operating the international monitoring system on all corners of our planet and the Executive Secretary of the organization. And I would like to offer our support to continue promoting this process that was launched 20 years ago following a great ideal.
Muchas gracias, señor. Next on my list is the Under-Secretary of State in Foreign and Commonwealth Office of United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Mr. Tobias Elwood. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. And can I begin, as others have done, in expressing condolences for the horrific events that took place in Orlando, Florida. Our thoughts and prayers are with all those who have been affected. Mr. Chairman, I am honoured to be representing the United Kingdom at this meeting to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the opening for signature of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. I would like to add my thanks to the Executive Secretary, Dr. Lassina Zerbo, for convening this meeting, who reminded us about our duty to future generations, a point that was echoed in the Secretary-General's video message. The United Kingdom remains a proud supporter of the Test Ban Treaty Organization. We were one of the first signatories in 1996, and we ratified the treaty in 1998. We now host 11 monitoring stations, not just in the UK, but on St. Helena, Tristan da Cunha, Ascension Island, Bermuda, and the British Indian Ocean Territory. A further station is planned at the Haley Research Station in Antarctica. We are one of the leading contributors to this organization, giving over £4.5 million through our annual assessment and contributing the time and resources of UK experts. But it is clear that this is a collective effort, and I would like to acknowledge the significant achievements of the CTBTO over the last 20 years. First, we should recognize the achievement of the treaty itself. Even without entry into force, it has made nuclear explosive tests an aberration. Only one country has disrupted this and continues to test in the 21st century. North Korea's actions continue to present a threat to regional and international security, and we welcome the strong international response at the UN Security Council. Secondly, we should recognize the achievement of this unique organization, which was built by state signatories. It may still only be provisional, but we have no doubt that it is effective. Its verification regime monitors global treaty compliance by collecting and analyzing data from stations all around the world. We saw the evidence of this most recently in the detection of the test by North Korea in January this year. And it is worth remembering that when the treaty was written, no one knew whether the international monitoring system would actually be possible. Today, we know that it is. All state signatories have equal access to the regular data that it provides. And this monitoring can only improve as the system continues to grow. It is now 89% complete. The success of the system is down to the dedication and collaboration of many countries who are represented here today who have established stations. But we call upon member states to get the remaining stations up and running in order to ensure that the verification regime is effective right across the world. As well as recognizing the achievements of the treaty and the international monitoring system, I would like to pay tribute to the extraordinary technical cooperation taking place within this building. The CTBTO provides excellent opportunities for scientific collaboration and capacity building. This work has potential life-saving benefits, not just in the field of verification technologies, but also in other areas, such as providing seismic data for tsunami early warning centers. Of course, all these achievements would be greatly enhanced by entry into force of the treaty itself. It would be a tangible step towards a safer and a more stable world. Further ratifications would demonstrate the global commitment towards ending nuclear test explosions. And it would also send an unequivocal message that nuclear explosive testing will not be tolerated. There are clear advantages to all of us for entry into force. We would have a fully operational international monitoring system and international data center, as well as on-site locations and inspections. Altogether, these elements would leave states in no doubt. Explosive tests could not go undetected. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my message is very simple. We fully support the CTBTO and pay tribute to its achievements over 20 years. But there is more to do. And the United Kingdom calls upon all states that have not yet done so to ratify this treaty and bring it into force. Together, we can end explosive nuclear testing. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Mr. the Secretary of State. And now let me give the floor to the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Japan, His Excellency Mr. Seiji Kihara. You have the floor, Minister.
Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by expressing my deep sympathy for victims and their families of the recent tragic terrorist attack in the United States and showing our solidarity with the United States and its people. I feel honored to represent my government at this important meeting, which commemorates the 20th year of the adoption of the treaty. The CTBT serves as a key function of placing a qualitative cap on nuclear development. It is one of the few concrete measures in this area that now has near universal support of the international community. Having recently received President Obama of the United States in Hiroshima, following the visit by the G7 foreign ministers, we would like to build upon the momentum that has been developed to strive toward the world free of nuclear weapons. The CTBT is a crucial and effective step to achieve this goal. Mr. Chair, it's regrettable that CTBT has not yet come into force. However, it is important for us all to acknowledge significant progress that has been made in the past 20 years. First, the CTBT has contributed to helping consolidate universal norm against nuclear testing. Strong international condemnation against North Korea's nuclear testing has proved that. Second, the development of verification system under the treaty has shown remarkable progress. Approximately 90% of the international monitoring system has now been established. with cooperation of states, including the non-ratifying Annex II countries. The IMS functioned well in the past nuclear tests, including on the occasion of North Korea's nuclear tests in January this year, and has certainly worked as deterrence. We should not underestimate this progress. Rather, we should redouble our efforts in realizing our common goal. There is no doubt that we are all united in supporting the causes on which we agreed 20 years ago. In this regard, Japan is prepared to take a leading role and further work with our partners, including our NPDI colleagues. Last September, at the Article 14 conference of the CTBT, Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida outlined 3 areas of focus to promote the process: political efforts at the highest level possible, further development of the IMS, and sharing the awareness of the use of nuclear weapons. On the political commitment, I would like to point out that, among others, in April, G7 foreign ministers reaffirmed their commitment to the early entry into force of the treaty as illustrated in their Hiroshima Declaration, which was later endorsed by the G7 leaders. Japan also issued a joint statement with Kazakhstan as the coordinator for the Article 14 process to urge the states which have not yet done so to sign and ratify the treaty. Regarding the development of the IMS, I would like to announce that Japan will double the number of trainees we invited to global seismological observation training course starting this year. The course aims at providing knowledge and techniques for detecting nuclear tests. It also provides an opportunity for outreaching to non-signatory states, including remaining Annex II states. As a part of effort to promote the awareness about the reality of the use of nuclear weapons, Japan encouraged people around the world to visit Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan also supports the activity of hibakusha, atomic bomb survivors. As most of hibakusha are in their 80s and 90s, there is an urgent need to pass on the reality of the consequence of nuclear weapons across board and generations, particularly to the youth. In addition, even before the entry into force of the CTBT, we can pursue all possible ways that are effective in strengthening the norms against nuclear tests, issuing political statements individually or jointly by all states that hold nuclear weapons, declaring commitment to moratorium on nuclear test explosions, for example, will effectively serve this purpose. Mr. Chair, in concluding, I would like to stress the importance of making persistent efforts toward the entry into force of the CTBT. We are all fully aware that this is not an easy task, but we should keep in mind that the CTBT is the most practical and effective measure for a world free of nuclear weapons. We must be proud of the achievement made so far and keep on trying with the conviction that we are on the right track. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Mr. Minister. And before we proceed with the remaining speakers on the list, I would like to give the floor to the distinguished secretary of the PrepCon for a short announcement. Have the floor.
Very briefly, Ambassador, because the next speaker is waiting there. There would be a photo opportunity with the High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Mogherini, and the female permanent representatives in Vienna. So it would be 20 minutes to 12:40, outside this room to your right-hand side, as you get out. Sorry, Ambassador.
Thank you indeed. And now I invite the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, His Excellency Mr. Ashot Hovakimyan. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on the 20th anniversary of the opening for signature, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty has almost achieved universal adherence. Although the treaty has not entered into force and it still requires political will and ongoing efforts towards full application, It has developed a robust global monitoring and verification systems with life-saving applications and established a de facto global moratorium on testing. Armenia hosts one international monitoring system, IMS facility, an auxiliary seismic station in Garni. The station forms part of the global network of 337 IMS monitoring facilities, which is being established under the terms of CTBT to verify compliance with the terms of the treaty. The monitoring facilities transmit data via satellite to the International Data Center in Vienna, where the data are used to detect, locate, and characterize events. This data and IDC products are made available to the state signatories for final analysis. Armenia has been selected as one of the priority states in the context of the EU Joint Action Plan with the CTBTO. The European Commission and the CTBTO provide technical assistance to Armenian Seismic Protection Agency aimed at increasing the capability of the National Data Center. Mr. Chair, the CTBT closely interacts with MPT, serving the same purpose of contributing to the regional and wider international security. Armenia is committed to the full and universal implementation of the treaties and non-proliferation policy. We urge our partners to combine joint actions in regional, sub-regional, and international levels for their comprehensive implementation. Armenia fully supports the idea of the establishment of nuclear weapon-free zones. Armenia closely cooperates on the regular basis with the international organizations and partner countries with regard to all nuclear energy issues. Numerous on-site inspections and assessment missions have reaffirmed Armenia's commitment in implementing its international obligations and the highest level of openness and transparency. Any non-compliance or deviation from the requirements of international treaties have been recorded. The Armenian government took the decision on extension of the life cycle of the Metsamor nuclear power plant after thorough consultations with IAEA and its international partners, and all possible measures are taken to ensure its safety and security. It is disappointing that Azerbaijan spreads in international fora in the most distorted and misleading manner the unfounded accusations claiming that Armenia breaches its obligations on nuclear non-proliferation. This has nothing to do with reality. This irresponsible attitude is directed only at shifting the international attention from the large-scale aggressive military actions unleashed by Azerbaijan against Nagorno-Karabakh and the gross violations on human rights and humanitarian law committed by Azerbaijan, including against the civilian population. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Next on my list is the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Argentina, His Excellency Mr. Carlos Mario Foradori. You have the floor, sir.
Buenos días, señor.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. First of all, with the attack in Orlando, I would like to express condolences to the United States and condemnation by the government of Argentina and our sympathy to the families of victims. It's an honor for me, with the celebration of the 20th anniversary of the opening for signing of the CTBT. We have firmly supported the objectives of the international community for nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, and promotion of peaceful uses of nuclear energy. Our country has defined its state policy in this area with constant action. Even in this preliminary phase, the treaty has shown its capability to strengthen the regime. The treaty is a significant milestone in strengthening the international regime for disarmament and non-proliferation, in particular due to the establishment of its international monitoring system, which is a fundamental tool for the international community to be prepared to detect nuclear explosions, whether atmospheric, subterranean, or submarine. With the probability of any country being able to have tests secretly being not likely, the reaction of the organization to the 4 tests by the DPRK has shown the advanced state of preparedness of the organization. The treaty is an instrument essentially working within the area of security, so its main objective can only be attained when it is effectively and universally implemented. Full and complete prohibition of nuclear tests is among the efforts of the international community needed for nuclear disarmament. As long as this treaty remains within a legal limbo, we will be deprived of the binding instrument needed, in other words, that cornerstone to limit production of new weapons and improvement of the current ones. Thus, Argentina can firmly confirm the need for universalization of CTBT, and considering the number of ratification, we would like to call upon countries that have not yet done so to do so promptly. The recent tests of North Korea at the beginning of this year has a clear demonstration that the longer it takes to have entry into force, the higher the risk that the practice will reemerge for nuclear tests. Mr. Chairman, my country is one of the original signatories of the treaty, and we are firmly committed to support the proper functioning of the international monitoring system and the International Data Center, appreciating all the progress made under the treaty. The treaty has not only demonstrated its operational effectiveness with the information provided on the tsunami affecting Japan in 2011, it has also detected nuclear tests since the beginning of the monitoring system. The functioning of these tools has many benefits, the main of these being promotion of entry into force of the treaty. Argentina contributes actively to the international verification system, hosting 8 monitoring stations and 1 laboratory. Our national authorities received Dr. Serbo in 2014 and 15, and on that opportunity, he managed to visit most of the stations in our national territory, with many steps being taken towards the 2 stations pending construction that are now advanced. We've been a tireless promoter in all relevant fora for the prompt entry into force of the treaty without any preconditions. Linking to this commitment, our Ministry for Foreign Affairs, Ms. Susana Malcora, accepted the invitation to be part of the group of eminent persons set up especially to give support to the Executive Secretary and promote the need for this fundamental element of disarmament and non-proliferation to enter into force as soon as possible. Argentina firmly believes in the benefits of creating areas for dialogue at high level for successful conclusion for the international community. Our authorities, furthermore, have decided to give support with the strengthening of the links between the organization, Latin America, and the Caribbean, which is preparing for 2 main conferences, WASMIP 4 during this year in Bariloche for the first time outside of Europe, and the regional introductory course under the Department for Verification in the Field that we will host in 2017. This 20th anniversary is a great opportunity to reaffirm the importance of the entry into force of the treaty as an objective and a challenge that are important for the whole of the international community. It is of the essence for nuclear tests to be recognized as banned legally and in a binding way, and the treaty is an multilateral tool adopted by the international community for this. The huge political, legal, and economic efforts of the organization that 164 states back means that there should be entry into force, and that at the service of peace and security without further delay. In Argentina, we are developing a principle that we hope will be guiding our international action in all over the world and in all chapters of the global agenda, and that is a principle of non-indifference among states. We are not indifferent towards the threat of nuclear development when it has no peaceful purpose and when it is handled in an irresponsible way. And for that reason, we call upon countries that have not as yet signed the treaty to do so immediately, and those that have not yet ratified to do so immediately. We cannot continue moving backwards. After 20 years of speeches and declarations, it would seem that that wasn't enough. With the dozens of countries that signed, we don't see that as sufficient to convince countries that have not had proactive measures adopted as yet for the treaty. We would like to see freedom as a common denominator in all of our lives, but we also need a common numerator, and that through peace obtained through the elimination of nuclear proliferation. Thank you.
Gracias. And now I would like to invite the General Director of Foreign Policy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Chile, Ambassador Alfredo Labe. You have the floor, sir.
Cristian, Reza, Excellencias.
Excellencies, friends, my first words shall be to express on behalf of the Republic of Chile our most sincere condolences to the government and people of the United States with the terrible attack in Orlando. Chile was the country that submitted at the Human Rights Council the first resolution on rights of LGBT people. And thus, we believe that it's important to have a vigorous response from the international community to reject this atrocious manifestation of intolerance that should be combated by all men and women of goodwill with that very same effort and conviction with which we are meeting here, advocating for the prompt ratification of the CTBT. Mr. Chairman, Chile has promoted and constantly demonstrated our support to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. And in that context, Latin America and the Caribbean, establishing the first densely populated nuclear weapon-free zone through the Tlatelolco Treaty in 2014, committed to consolidate Latin America and the Caribbean as a peace zone. At that time, the states that now are in CELAC took the obligation to continue promoting nuclear disarmament as a priority objective, contributing to general and comprehensive disarmament as well as confidence building among nations. With the 20th anniversary of the opening of the signature of the CTBT, we need to emphasize the central role of the treaty in the nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime and the vital importance and urgency for entry into force. We cannot avoid expressing frustration with the lack of political will that has prevented entry into force of the treaty to date. And accordingly, once again, we call upon the remaining 8 states in Annex 2 to subscribe to and/or ratify without further delay, reaffirming, in the meantime, the moratoriums so far. While the CTBTO may perform the tasks of monitoring assigned under the treaty, it is obvious that without the legal commitment, it will not be effective. Chile rejects any type of nuclear weapons and any concept of security justifying the use or threat to use nuclear weapons or the promotion and establishment of military alliances and policies based on nuclear weapons and nuclear deterrence policies. We condemn all nuclear tests, including subcritical tests, to improve and develop nuclear weapons, because this runs counter to the spirit and the letter of the CTBT, undermining its impact as a measure for nuclear disarmament. Mr. Chairman, our country would like to take this opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to continue giving the Preparatory Commission the necessary political support for the most efficient and economical performance of all its tasks, including that of establishing all the elements of the verification regime. Chile has 7 stations, including the 4 technologies, commits to continue striving for prompt entry into force of the CTBT, and we call upon all states to focus on this at the highest political level. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, don Alfredo.
Thank you, Alfred.
And let me now invite the last speaker for this morning's session, the Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security of the United States of America, Her Excellency Ms. Rose Gottmuller. You have the floor, madam.
Distinguished ministers, Executive Secretary Zerbo, who is not yet in the hall, but again to congratulate him and all colleagues from the CTBTO for this excellent event today. Other esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I wanted to begin by expressing my heartfelt thanks for your heartfelt expressions of sympathy for the terrible event that happened over the weekend in Orlando, Florida. As President Obama said, quote, "This was an act of terror and an act of hate. As Americans, we are united in grief, in outrage, and in resolve to defend our people." Beyond the President's words about the American people, I would like to say that it was not only a great tragedy for the United States, but in my view, for the entire world community as well. So I thank you and appreciate your words of support for the United States in this setting today, which is a great gathering of the world community. I'm honored to be here today representing the United States of America as we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty and the establishment of the Preparatory Commission for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. I would like to begin by reading a statement from President Obama. I send greetings to all those commemorating the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, and I am pleased to recognize the important contributions of the Preparatory Commission for the CTBTO over the past 2 decades. Since the United States signed the CTBT in 1996, we have strengthened the nuclear nonproliferation regime and enhanced the security of our world. Though we have made great progress, the treaty's full potential has not been fulfilled. We must remain steadfast in our support for the treaty and for the critical work of the Preparatory Commission. I am proud of the role the United States has played in negotiating this treaty and for our continued support for the work of the PrepCom and its Provisional Technical Secretariat to prepare for the effective implementation of the treaty. I commend your country's continued contributions to this cause and urge all members of the PrepCom to make available the political, technical, and financial resources necessary to complete the treaty's verification regime. A legally binding prohibition on nuclear weapon test explosions or on any nuclear explosions is a meaningful step toward nuclear disarmament, a goal achievable once the CTBT enters into force. I wish you all the best for a successful ministerial meeting. Signed, Barack Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, 53 years and 3 days ago, President John F. Kennedy, another of our presidents, called for a treaty outlawing all nuclear explosive tests. The conclusion of such a treaty, he said, would check the spiraling arms race in one of its most dangerous areas, the further spread of nuclear arms. Surely this goal, he said, is sufficiently important to require our steady pursuit, yielding neither to the temptation to give up the whole effort nor the temptation to give up our insistence on vital and responsible safeguards. Despite global tensions, despite scientific barriers, despite political divisiveness, we did not give up. The United States is proud of its role in the negotiation of a comprehensive ban on nuclear explosive testing, and we were proud to be the first nation to sign the CTBT after it opened for signature in 1996. The United States signed the CTBT because we recognize the potential of this treaty to significantly strengthen the nuclear non-proliferation regime, thereby enhancing the security of our nation and every nation around the world. As President Obama stated, the full potential of the CTBT remains unfulfilled, but the United States is steadfast in our support for the treaty and for the critical work of the Preparatory Commission. Our dedication to the treaty is demonstrated through unmatched monetary and technical support and our clear commitment to ensuring that the verification regime is completed and functions as intended. We hope that all of today's statements of support for the treaty will be transformed into tangible resources. Every signatory to the treaty must support the work of the Preparatory Commission to complete the treaty's verification regime and help enhance the effectiveness of the Provisional Technical Secretariat. We must all work to upgrade the International Data Center and ensure the completion of an effective on-site inspection capability. In this vein, the United States welcomes all those who have taken steps to send their data to the International Monitoring System stations, the IDC. At this point in time, we think it's very vital that they be already in the course of doing so. Despite our clear support for the CTBT, the United States acknowledges that we have not yet completed our work on ratification and that our delay gives cover to other Annex II countries who have also failed to secure ratification of the treaty. That is why we are building support for this treaty in the United States, state by state, sometimes person by person, because we know that a global ban on nuclear explosive testing is good for our country. We are making it clear to the American public that our scientists and military experts agree that the CTBT is verifiable and we do not need to conduct explosive testing in order to maintain a safe, secure, and effective nuclear stockpile. I will not deny that this work is difficult and that we face domestic political obstacles. That does not change the fact that this treaty is in our national interest, and so it is incumbent on us to convince those who doubt this fact. We are certain we have a good case to make. We will continue to make it. We will also look to for ways to affirm the norm against testing nuclear weapons. As we work through our own process, I call upon all Annex II states to complete their own ratification processes. I also call upon those states to tell this community about your plans for ratification. We are very clear about our plans for ratification. We will continue to work very hard to achieve that goal, as I just stated, but we would like to hear what others are planning in this regard. Moving forward in a clear and transparent way is what we can all do to honor this anniversary of the CTBT and all the work that went into getting us here. Ladies and gentlemen, 53 years and 3 days ago, the world was issued a challenge, and today we are closer than ever to bringing a global ban on nuclear explosive testing into force. We cannot and must not give up. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you indeed, Madam Undersecretary, and distinguished delegates. We would like to now close the morning session, and let me remind all of you that in the rotunda there is the opening ceremony of CTBT20 exhibition and a Van d'honneur offered by the chairmanship.
And then followed by the lunch.
And then followed by the lunch.
A reception by
So, meeting is adjourned.